The Dominion's pride hung above the burning colony like a metal god, its black hull blotting out stars as firelight washed the world below. Admiral Varick's corps stood at the observation deck with the easy posture of someone too accustomed to victory. He didn't bother looking at the tactical screens. He knew the outcome already. Another human settlement reduced to ash. Another example to the galaxy of what happened when primitives defied the Cerati Dominion. Around him, officers murmured dry reports. Enemy resistance minimal. Civilian evacuation incomplete. Casualties irrelevant. The bridge crew spoke with the efficient boredom of clerks stamping documents. The colony's defense fleet, 5 corvettes and a single frigate, had been vaporized in the opening salvo. No Cerati ship had so much as lost shielding. Kor glanced down at the planet. The colony burned in pockets, firestorms racing across forests and cities alike. He imagined the humans below running, screaming, pleading with whatever gods they worshipped. It should have stirred something, pity perhaps, but he felt only a faint annoyance that the humans had resisted at all. The Cerati Dominion was a civilization 10,000 years old, stretching across 3 arms of the galaxy. Humanity had barely left its cradle a century ago. Yet they resisted, colony after colony, never surrendering even when hopelessly outmatched. Primitive obstinacy, Kor muttered. Captain Relner, his second in command, turned from the tactical station. Younger, sharper-featured, with the ever-present gleam of ambition in his eyes, Relner smirked faintly. They fight like vermin trapped in walls, Admiral. Claws and teeth, but no sense of scale. Kor allowed himself a dry smile. Let them scratch. It changes nothing. On screen, a human missile frigate plummeted from orbit, torn apart mid-descent, raining fire across the colony's surface. Even their deaths accomplished nothing but spectacle. Then came the report that should have been routine, one more note in a symphony of annihilation. Admiral, Relner said, scanning a sensor feed. One of their surface stations transmitted before we destroyed it. Tight beam burst into deep space. Encrypted. Kor barely glanced over. To where? Unknown. Trajectory intersects no known relay hubs. It's odd. As if the signal wasn't meant for the wider human network. Relner sounded puzzled, which annoyed Kor. Officers were not paid to puzzle. Probably some backwater distress call. Let it run. By the time anyone arrives, there will be nothing left but ash. Relner hesitated. It carried priority codes we haven't seen before. Military grade. The encryption cycle is irrelevant. Kor interrupted sharply. Do you see a fleet arriving to challenge us? Silence. Only the crackle of the burning planet below. Kor leaned on the railing, claws tapping metal. The humans would lose this war as all upstarts did. They might delay the inevitable, cost a few ships here and there, but against the full Dominion war machine? Hopeless. Entire species had learned that lesson across centuries. Some had survived by surrendering early. Others resisted longer, and were gone now, their ruins fertilizing alien soil. Mark the coordinates, Kor said finally, almost as an afterthought. We'll investigate later. Down on the surface, the relay station's final defenders had fought to the last rifle. The Cerati had found only bodies among scorched consoles. One human, throat burned from smoke, had lived long enough to whisper into a helmet cam recovered by Dominion troops. You woke them up, he rasped, eyes full of blood and something worse. Pity. The soldier recording the feed had replayed it for his commander, confused. Woke who? The message made its way up the chain, eventually reaching Kor, who dismissed it as the ramblings of a dying man. Yet some part of him, buried beneath layers of training and arrogance, felt the tiniest chill. He ignored it. Hours later, as the Dominion's pride departed orbit, leaving the colony in flames, the mysterious signal streaked through the void. It crossed Dominion borders without challenge, slipping through sensor nets as though it knew exactly where the gaps lay. No one could trace its path, no algorithm could predict its destination. It passed mining stations, listening posts, entire fleets, none the wiser. A simple burst of energy wrapped in codes no Cerati system could decipher. And far away, Beyond even Dominion charts, deep in the region humans still called the solar frontier, silent stations awoke. Engines rumbled to life on ships hidden for decades in hollowed asteroids. Artificial intelligences older than most human colonies activated contingency protocols written by hands long dead. Across scattered systems, encrypted orders reached fleets that had never appeared on any map. The Deathworlders were stirring. On the Dominion's Pride, the crew celebrated another victory. Officers drank in the wardroom, boasting about how quickly the war would end now that Earth's outer colonies were falling one by one. Relner joined Core on the observation deck again, both staring at the stars sliding past as the ship prepared for its next campaign. The humans can't last much longer, Relner said confidently. Another dozen colonies at most. Core grunted agreement, though his mind lingered on that final transmission. It nagged at him. Not fear, not yet, but curiosity sharpened by years of command instinct. Wars were often lost not through superior enemies, but through overlooked details, tiny cracks widening until fleets fell through. He pushed the thought aside. Begin plotting the next offensive, he ordered. I want Earth itself before the next solar cycle. We'll end this rebellion at its heart. Relner smiled thinly. And crush whatever hope they think they have left. Yes, Core thought. Crush them, break their spirit, burn their world if needed. Victory required nothing less. But far across the darkness, the signal had been received. It carried no words, no threats, no promises. Just coordinates. And the authorization to wake what humanity had kept sleeping. The Dominion's Pride vanished into FTL transit, blind to the stirrings now spreading across human space. Core believed himself the hunter still, the unchallenged master of this war. He did not yet realize the war had just changed. Not that anyone could have explained it to him. Not in terms he would have believed. The message from the dying human soldier returned unbidden to his mind as he left the deck for his quarters. You woke them up. He frowned, irritated that he remembered it at all. The fleet moved on toward its next target, unaware that its era of easy victories had ended the moment that signal crossed the stars. The Dominion's Pride reached its next target with the same cold precision as before, its fleet sliding into orbit like a predator returning to the hunt. But this time, Admiral Varick's Core watched the tactical screens with a faint irritation he could not name. The colony beneath them, another human settlement of no particular value, was braced for slaughter, its defenses pitiful against the Serity fleet. Yet Core found himself studying the readouts longer than necessary, lingering on details he would have ignored days ago. The signal still troubled him. It had vanished beyond Dominion space without trace, but whispers had begun among the crew, rumors of human fleets mobilizing in the dark, of bases no one knew existed. Core dismissed it publicly as nonsense, yet privately he felt the first stirrings of unease. The humans were primitives, yes, but primitives had teeth. The attack began on schedule. Dominion ships descended in perfect formation, cutting through orbital defenses with contemptuous ease. Human resistance followed its usual pattern, stubborn, suicidal, doomed. Core watched the planetary shield fail, then turned to Relner. Another hour, he said flatly. Then we move on. Relner smirked. At this pace, Admiral, Earth will fall before the cycle ends. But even as he spoke, a sensor officer hesitated at his console. Sir, multiple contacts, inbound fast. Core frowned. Human reinforcements? Unknown configuration, the officer replied, tension creeping into his voice. They're smaller than Dominion cruisers, but fast. Very fast. The ships arrived without warning, bursting from FTL like knives through silk. Sleek, angular craft painted in matte black, running almost no emissions, closing distance before Dominion targeting systems fully registered them. Core straightened slowly. Something about their movement felt wrong. Too coordinated. Too precise. Identify them, he snapped. No one could. The strange vessels launched no missiles, fired no plasma batteries. Instead, beams of impossible accuracy lanced outward, not energy weapons, but streams of kinetic slugs traveling at relativistic speed. The first Dominion cruiser vanished in a silent blossom of metal fragments. Bridge crew froze, staring at the tactical feed in disbelief. Dominion's shields were designed for plasma, missiles, conventional threats. Nothing in 10,000 years of warfare had prepared them for this. Relner turned sharply toward Kor. "Admiral, they're cutting through us like—" "Return fire," Kor barked. But the enemy ships were already gone, vanishing into FTL jumps as abruptly as they had arrived. Seconds later, another Dominion cruiser died under identical fire from a different vector. It was not a battle. It was dissection. On the bridge, panic spread in tight, silent ripples. Officers who had spoken with sneering confidence hours ago now whispered over displays, voices tight with disbelief. Kor stood motionless, claws curling against the railing. He understood suddenly, horribly, that this was no random skirmish. The humans had not merely built ships, they had built strategy. Every Dominion weakness exploited, every reaction anticipated. The sensor officer swallowed audibly. "Sir, incoming transmission." Kor's eyes narrowed. "From where?" The officer hesitated. "Everywhere." Across the fleet's displays, a single message appeared in flawless Cerati script. "Withdraw immediately. No further warnings will be given. No voice. No theatrics. Just calm, clinical instruction." Relner's composure cracked. "They dare threaten the Dominion?" Kor said nothing. He stared at the message until it vanished, replaced by fleet casualty reports climbing far too quickly. When the unknown ships disappeared again into the dark, they left behind wreckage and silence. No pursuit was possible. They moved through wormholes no Dominion map recorded, striking and vanishing before counterattacks formed. Relner turned to Kor, voice low. "Admiral, this isn't rebellion anymore." Kor didn't answer. He watched crewmen rushing between stations, their earlier arrogance stripped away, and felt the weight of something he hadn't experienced in decades pressing against his chest. It might have been fear. Hours later, as damaged cruisers regrouped, Dominion intelligence finally produced fragments of information. The mysterious attackers were human, though no known human fleet matched their design or speed. Entire ship classes existed that Dominion spies had never documented. The council back home would demand answers, of course. They would call it an isolated incident, sabotage perhaps, anything to protect their pride. But Kor had seen precision like that only once before, long ago, studying Dominion history, the campaigns that had forged their own empire from dozens of dead civilizations. Wars won not by strength alone, but by speed, secrecy, and the cold willingness to do whatever victory required. The humans, it seemed, had learned those lessons well. Relner joined him again on the darkened observation deck. Beyond the glass, recovery drones collected debris where proud Dominion cruisers had fallen. "They planned this," Relner said bitterly. "All of it. The colonies, the attack's bait." Kor said nothing for a long moment. Then, quietly, "Find me everything we have on human history. Wars. Tactics. Psychology. I want to know what we're fighting." Relner stared at him. "You think they can win?" Kor didn't answer immediately. His gaze remained fixed on the drifting wreckage outside, the first Dominion losses in a war that had seemed so certain. "I think," he said finally, "we don't understand them at all." The words tasted like ash. Far away, in the silence between stars, human fleets moved again, answering the signal no Dominion sensor could track. The war Kor thought he was fighting had already ended. Something far larger had begun. Admiral Varick's Kor read the war reports 3 times before setting them aside in silence. His quarters aboard the Dominion's Pride were dim, the only light from the displays listing ship losses and fragmented sensor data from the ambush. Entire Dominion squadrons erased in minutes. No identified human command structure. No capture technology. No prisoners. Only patterns of precision suggesting a level of planning the Cerati Dominion had not faced in centuries. Kor sat rigid, claws tapping against the table. He had commanded fleets against dozens of rebellious species. None had possessed this kind of restraint. Most fought with desperation, throwing ships against Dominion firepower until nothing remained. These humans struck like surgeons, kill the artery, then vanish before the body reacts. It was not savagery. It was something worse, calculation. When the council summoned him by hololink, Kor kept his expression carefully neutral. The chamber filled with towering holographic figures, each representing a council elder, their jeweled robes and ceremonial masks symbols of the Dominion's unbroken rule across half the galaxy. One elder spoke sharply. "We are told the humans inflicted significant losses. Explain how primitives achieved this." Kor clasped his hands behind his back. "They are not primitives. Not anymore. Their colonies were bait. Every move we made followed their design." Another elder scoffed. "A coincidence. Or sabotage within our own fleets." Kor's tone hardened. "Respectfully, Counselor, denial will not bring back the dead. We face an enemy who has studied us, our tactics, our technology, our psychology, and prepared accordingly." The elders exchanged muted glances. Pride warred with unease behind their masks. At length, the eldest among them leaned forward. "What do you recommend, Admiral?" Kor hesitated before answering. "Full strategic review. Halt major offensives until we understand their capabilities. They fight without fear, without waste. This is not rebellion. This is war." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some elders bristled at the suggestion of caution. Others looked quietly shaken. Dominion doctrine allowed no pause once conquest began. To halt momentum was to invite weakness, rebellion, the collapse of centuries of dominance. A third elder finally spoke, voice sharp. "We will not be intimidated by upstarts from a single backwater world. Continue the campaign. Crush them quickly before myths grow around their resistance." Kor's jaw tightened. He wanted to argue, to shout that they were blind, but years of command discipline held him still. The council did not understand. Perhaps they could not. When the transmission ended, leaving only silence in his quarters, Kor felt the weight of inevitability pressing down. The council would learn the truth only through more blood. Dominion pride allowed no other path. The next day, he summoned intelligence officers and analysts, demanding everything on human history the Dominion had gathered since first contact. Hours later, he stood alone before walls of projected data, centuries of warfare compressed into images and statistics. He watched human soldiers fighting in mud with rifles centuries out of date, then missiles streaking through skies during global wars, then nuclear fire blooming over cities. He saw the progression to orbital strikes, autonomous drones, cyber wars fought in silence across entire networks. The humans had turned conflict into something almost artistic, relentless innovation born from their own divisions. They fought each other with a ferocity most species reserved for extinction-level threats. And they had done it for millennia. Kor found himself gripping the console as he watched footage of cities burning during Earth's 20th century, the mushroom clouds, the famines, the rebuilding, the next war starting before the last ended. A species that survived this would not fear the Dominion's fleets. For the first time in decades, Kor felt a slow, unfamiliar chill move through him. Relner entered quietly, studying the screens. "Admiral, you think this is what awaits us?" Kor didn't look at him. "No. This is what forged them. What awaits us will be worse." Relner shifted uneasily. The younger officer had begun the war speaking of human weakness, with contempt. Now he watched the same images Kor had seen and said nothing for a long time. Finally, "The Council will not listen until the humans bleed us again." Kor's gaze hardened. "Then they will bleed us again." Far across Dominion space, as fleets reorganized and councils debated, human forces moved with growing boldness. They struck supply lines, erased communication hubs, collapsed entire sectors into silence before retreating beyond pursuit. Every victory the Dominion claimed left them more isolated, more blind. Kor received report after report, convoys gone, outposts destroyed, admirals dead in ambushes lasting mere minutes. Yet never civilians. Never random slaughter. The humans killed only what kept the Dominion alive. It was strategy for empire killing, not mere survival. In private moments, Core studied star maps marked with each attack. Patterns emerged slowly, forming shapes he didn't like. The humans were cutting paths toward the Dominion's core worlds with terrifying precision, as if already planning occupation before the Council even admitted danger existed. One evening, Relner approached him on the darkened bridge. "Admiral, what if they reach the homeworld?" Core didn't answer at first. Through the observation window, wreckage from another failed counterattack drifted among the stars. "If they reach the homeworld," Core said finally, voice low, "the war is already over." He turned from the glass, issuing orders for fleet redeployments the Council hadn't authorized. He would not wait for politicians to understand what was coming. Because deep down, beneath pride and training, Core sensed the truth taking shape, a truth he doubted even the humans fully realized. The Dominion was no longer hunting them. The Dominion was being prepared for execution. The first wave struck without warning. One moment, the Dominion's frontier command hub pulsed with routine transmissions, fleet movements, supply orders. The comforting hum of empire stretched across the stars. The next, every channel screamed distress signals before falling abruptly silent. Admiral Varick's Core watched in grim silence as reports scrolled across the Dominion's pride, planetary shields collapsing in seconds, entire battle groups gone dark, orbital defense grids failing without firing a shot. No demands for surrender. No declarations of war. Just erasure, swift, surgical, unstoppable. On the bridge, officers whispered fragments of disbelief. The humans were no longer harassing supply lines or ambushing stragglers. They had come for the Dominion's heart. Multiple wormhole signatures. A sensor officer stammered. "They're opening inside our perimeter. Admiral, they're bypassing everything." Core leaned forward slowly, eyes narrowing. The Council had dismissed his warnings, demanded more offensives, called the humans rebels clinging to scraps of territory. Now, as Dominion fleets died faster than orders could be issued, Core felt no satisfaction in being right. Only the cold certainty that even this was proceeding according to someone else's design. "Order all ships to defensive formations," he said sharply. "Prioritize civilian evacuation. And get me a secure line to the Council." It was already too late for the Council. Within the hour, human fleets emerged from wormholes above the Dominion capital itself, sleek, angular warships black against the stars. They did not fire on the cities below. They dismantled the orbital defense platforms instead, cutting power grids and targeting centers with mathematical precision until the entire defense network collapsed. Relner stood beside Core, watching silent chaos unfold. "Why aren't they attacking the surface?" he muttered. Core understood. Terror without slaughter. Occupation without annihilation. The humans weren't here to burn worlds. They were here to replace an empire. On the palace steps, Dominion guards watched helplessly as automated drones descended like falling stars, locking entire ministries inside shimmering energy barriers. No bloodshed. No speeches. Just quiet, total control. Core received the final transmission from the Council chambers minutes before human forces reached them. The eldest counselor's voice shook with rage and disbelief. "They offer terms," the counselor spat. "Occupation authority under their command until stabilization. They claim we will govern ourselves under their oversight." Relner stared as the transmission cut abruptly, replaced by a simple message across every Dominion frequency. "Hostilities concluded. Dominion authority suspended. Transitional governance begins immediately." No anthem. No flag raised. Just the quiet certainty of conquest completed. Core stood on the Dominion's pride long after the fighting ended, staring at the human fleets now orbiting the capital like silent executioners. No cheering. No demands for tribute. As if war had been only a necessary unpleasantness, already set aside for whatever came next. When the summons came, he expected imprisonment, perhaps trial or execution. Instead, a human officer in dark uniform met him aboard a captured Dominion station. The man's voice carried no triumph, no hatred, only the calm of someone delivering orders already decided. Admiral Varick's Corps, the officer said, you will retain administrative authority over your fleets and territories under transitional oversight. Resistance is not advised. Cooperation will preserve stability. Corps studied him warily. You conquer an empire and leave its admirals in place? The officer's expression didn't change. We didn't come for revenge. We came to end a war you began. What follows depends on you. Later, watching Dominion officers accept human directives without gunfire or rebellion, Corps realized the brilliance of it. The humans hadn't simply defeated the Dominion militarily. They had hollowed it out, leaving its shell intact, so civilians and soldiers alike awoke to a new order without knowing when control had slipped away. Relner approached quietly on the observation deck. Admiral, what are we now? Corps considered before answering. Subjects, he said finally, or allies, if we learn quickly enough. Far above them, human fleets departed through their wormholes one by one, leaving only occupation forces behind. The speed of withdrawal unsettled Corps more than conquest itself. As though the Dominion were already an afterthought, its long history reduced to a solved problem on humanity's path elsewhere. Because humanity, he realized with slow certainty, had not awakened for the Dominion alone. They had awakened for the galaxy. And as the last wormhole closed, as human banners replaced Dominion emblems across the capital, Corps felt the strange, heavy weight of survival. Not victory. Not even defeat. Survival under something far larger than empire or rebellion. For the first time since the war began, he wondered what lay beyond humanity's new frontier and whether the galaxy would survive meeting it.